Dr. Doug Goldsmith, child and family psychologist, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Doctor, fear can do some strange things with people, and we are living in some really frightening times right now, especially for young children who may not really comprehend the magnitude of what's going on. How can parents impress upon their children the need to make these drastic changes in their daily routines and in their family life and walk the fine line of not actually frightening them?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, it's been interesting to watch this unfold with all the children we're seeing in therapy. A couple of weeks ago, they all knew about the coronavirus, and they all know it by name. As soon as I say, "Are you worried about the virus?" they immediately pop out the name, and they talk about their worries. They're very worried because of playground chatter, and parents need to understand that. A lot of the fear is coming from the misinformation that happens with peers. So a lot of them have been told on the playground, all of us are going to die, children are going to die. So one of the problems is that parents ask the wrong question. Parents are saying, "What did your teacher tell you?" That's actually good information. What they need to ask is, what are you hearing from the kids at school? What did you hear when you were at school, in the hallways or on the playground? Because that's when the myths that are causing anxiety and stress are really unfolding.
And it really is an uphill battle, because we know that children will a lot of times put more weight behind their peers' opinions than they do their parents.
Well, it's true. I mean, the kids are saying, actually, they've now turned this into a game. So they say, you know, haha, I have coronavirus, and then they play "you're it," and they touch the kid and say, "Now you've got it," which is actually a very positive thing that's changed over the past couple of weeks, because children for centuries, under horribly stressful times like this, will use humor as a way to cope.
So when a parent hears their child joking about coronavirus and the idea that everybody's going to die and that kind of thing, parents don't need to be concerned about that?
Well, it's not being insensitive. It's really the children saying, you know, if we can laugh about this, if we can bring it to life, that's going to help us. The millennials have actually titled the virus "Bye Bye Boomer." That's a little less funny, and they could use some sensitivity training.
Now, what about the idea that fear can actually be a good thing to a degree, especially when there is so much at stake?
Well, I think the children's fear is actually starting to subside just a little bit, as they're starting to hear the children are not going to be affected, but now they're worried about the adults in their world. They're worried about grandma and grandpa getting sick, which is legitimate. So a lot of information needs to be done to help them understand realistically what's going to happen. One of the mistakes parents make that causes the fear to actually escalate is we try to be protective. We don't want our children upset. But in this kind of situation, they need to say, yes, people are going to die. Yes, very old people are going to die. And that's why we're going to take care of ourselves so we don't pass it on and make other people sick.
Break down for us, if you would, how parents ought to be approaching each age group, say 0 to 5, 6 to 12, the teens and young adults. Certainly one size does not fit all in this case.
That's true. For the young kids, we've been talking, and they've been hearing this at school, well, you just need to wash your hands. Well, children never understand, why am I supposed to wash my hands? I just get harassed about washing my hands all the time. To get rid of germs. When I've had children in my office, and parents should be doing this too, I've said, let's pretend that I'm sick. And let's pretend that I'm touching my pants or my chair. Where is the virus? And the kids go, oh, it's on your chair. And I say, let's pretend you come over here and you say, hi, Dr. Doug, and you touch my chair. Where's the virus? Oh, it's on my hand. And let's pretend that mom gives you a candy bar and you open it up. Where's the virus? It's on the candy bar. And if you eat the candy bar, where's the virus? And their eyes get big and they say, oh, the virus is inside of me. I said, that's right. But after you touched my chair, if you ran to the bathroom and washed your hands, now where's the virus? It's down the sink. And they all have this aha moment of, oh, that's where I want it. That's why I need to be washing my hands. So parents need to sort of break this down and let them know that they can overcome fear by washing their hands, because that gets rid of the virus, and that's really helpful. And the kids have really responded well to that kind of an analogy. For the older kids, we don't need to do it that way, but we need to help them understand, why can't you be playing with your friends now? Why can't we go out? Because if I touch you and your friend gets it, and your friend goes home and touches 3 people and they get it, and they can start to explain and understand how this unfolds so quickly and infects so many people so quickly. And that's important too. I think the next part we're going to face for our older kids, and even for the later elementary, is that it's probably unlikely that they're going back to school in 2 weeks. They're going to start to get a little stir crazy. They're going to be missing their friends. They're going to start to feel contained, and parents are going to have to respond to that in a different way.
And that brings up a real good point. What we have found, at least in our family, and I'm sure you concur with this, is the more that you can explain the expectations, what children can expect in the future, the more understanding they have and the easier it is for them to assimilate those changes. Am I not right?
That is right. So one of the additional problems is that while parents are out there hoarding, bringing home a lot of stuff that the kids haven't seen, they're changing their behavior. And that sets up some concern to the children, which they may not mention, and then they start to imagine worst-case scenarios. Why is this happening? You know, why is mom so suddenly worried about getting to the grocery store so much? Why are we hearing that maybe we'll have to stay in the house and not be able to go outside? So parents have to be explaining their own behaviors to the children. Why aren't we going to church anymore? Because if we're all at church, we might make people really sick. They also then get concerned, is this the new normal? And parents are going to have to explain that at some point we're going to get back to the way things were, but we don't really know when that is right now.
That uncertainty right there, let's talk about that. Children thrive on stability. They thrive on routine, and that is where so much learning takes place as they are growing up. In this kind of a situation where it is open-ended and we honestly don't know when this whole thing is going to pass, how do you help them cope with that element?
Well, when you talk about the routine, which is a very good point, parents really need to maintain routine. That's what's difficult for kids in times like this. So they should really be saying, we're going to get up in the morning, you're going to do your schoolwork on the computer like you've been asked to, and then we're going to take a break. And during our break, we're going to go outside and get some exercise, and then we're going to come back in and do a little more schoolwork before lunch. And after lunch, we have these activities. Maybe it's not, doesn't have to be prescribed like it's at 1:15 we're switching. The time doesn't matter. But saying we're going to go outside, we're going to play with the dog, we're going to play on our equipment, throw the ball around, then you're going to come in and have some quiet time, and then you're going to have time for the computer for your video games, letting them know that they can anticipate that that's still going to be happening. If we just let kids watch TV or play video games all day, they're going to be in real trouble in just a few weeks.
Parents of children who are older and perhaps have left the home, young adults, I'm thinking of millennials and maybe Generation Xers, there is a phenomenon going on right now where they don't believe that any of this is nearly as serious as it actually is. How can parents approach their older children, those who have left the home and are living their lives devil may care and not thinking one whit about the dangers that are actually present because of this coronavirus pandemic?
Well, the millennials are responding right now with some shock and disbelief. And I keep hearing from millennials, I've never lived through anything like this. And we say, no, of course you haven't. This is totally new. It's also helpful to talk to them about history. We're not the first country that's gone into grocery stores and not been able to get the foods that we want. Other countries would say, where have you been? This is not that unusual. But they don't know how to deal with anxiety. It's never been thrown at them before. They don't know how to deal with the fact that there's uncertainty. They've been used to living a pretty casual, carefree life with plenty. And this is the first time that they're going to see their lives restricted. And they're not going to be used to how to handle that. What do you mean I can't go to the bar? What do you mean we can't go out for coffee anymore? This is going to feel really uncomfortable, and it's going to start to create more anxiety for them, just as it is for the parents. It's helpful if parents can sit down and start to explain that, because in addition, they've been used to really having pretty good access to finances, and they're not watching the stock market. Most of them don't own stocks. So parents are going to have to explain, this is what it means by the fact that our portfolios have dramatically decreased. This is going to cause some at least temporary changes. This is going to take a while to come back. Parents need to be open and honest about how these changes are directly impacting their lives today.
One of the things that my wife and I have noticed since this whole thing started, and we have been a little more aggressive, I think, in cloistering our children simply because of some underlying health issues that are present in our home, and also because we just don't want the virus to spread through us. One of the things that we have noticed as the children are playing together, especially in these early days, is that there's not nearly as much time spent on computers and on personal entertainment devices, and that the children are actually playing together a lot more than they normally do. What kinds of things can we look forward to in terms of positive unintended consequences of this pandemic?
I think you've named one, which is great. When we're kind of contained to the house and they can't be going on a lot of play dates, the physicians have really warned against that letting them go to their houses and hang out with peers potentially spreads the contagion factor, and we don't want to do that, obviously. Older kids are going to have a little trouble with that because they're at a developmental stage where they should be with their peers. They're going to have to rely on their phones and rely on social media, and parents are going to have to find some tolerance in that. But I think also saying to them, let's have a movie night. Let's play some board games that we haven't played together does open up some definite new opportunity for families to react and engage with each other in ways that haven't been happening.
What are some of the signs that parents should watch for in children that may not be handling the stress and the strangeness of this coronavirus pandemic very well? And once they identify those signs, what do they do about them?
That's a really important question. One of the things that I think parents can do that is most helpful is to say to the children, we are going to be fully honest with you. If we find out that you're not going back to school, we're going to tell you right away. If we find out that we're having to stay in the house longer, we're going to tell you right away. And most important, if grandma and grandpa get sick or mom and dad are sick, we are going to let you know. We're not going to keep that secret. So you don't have to be watching and wondering, because if we haven't told you, everybody is fine. That can really put their minds to ease. But highly anxious children are highly anxious about everything, and their minds tend to become irrational and blow it out of control. If they stop eating, if it looks like they're washing their hands too much because they're now frightened, if it looks like they're changing their routines or making some unusual behaviors, some of the kids will create rituals that don't make sense. They may start to go into the bathroom and need to turn on and off the sink 10 times before they can leave the bathroom. Those kinds of obsessive behaviors, all of those kinds of things would warrant reaching out and getting help. In addition, changes in appetite, changes in sleep, an inability to sleep, or a lot of new worries that are coming up in their discussion, those kids may need help.
So what should they do? At what point do you pick up the phone and say, Dr. Goldsmith, I need you?
Well, as soon as it starts to feel like I'm getting more frustrated as a parent than I was, that's a good time to reach out. This child is starting to exhibit a lot of behaviors that just don't seem typical. When it comes to anxiety, this doesn't mean session after session after session. Sometimes the kids can come in, get it off their chest, and with some new toolbox of how to calm down, that can be really beneficial.
What about parents of special needs children? How would you guide them through this kind of a situation?
A lot of times what's happening with families with special needs children is now having to spend so much time closed up in the house, having to deal with these behaviors, having to deal with the parent's own anxiety, and that's a very important factor here. Parents are frightened. That's why they're out hoarding. This is one of the first times that we're faced with something that feels totally beyond our control, and that itself creates a lot of anxiety. That, in turn, can create a lot of stress for the parents, and they can start to get angry with the kids. Special needs kids can obviously, by virtue of what they're doing, require a lot of attention, require a lot of high needs, and the parents may be wanting to watch the news, try to figure out what's going on, trying to manage their own stress with being cooped up in the house and worried about the kids getting sick and them getting sick. Parents need to really be careful not to take that out on the kids. That's a really important part, to try to be more patient, to understand that the children are going to have a lot of questions that have already been answered, to take time, if they keep putting children on timeout, to say, you know what, let's go outside, let's take a break, let's switch focus so we're not just on each other all the time.
I want to get just a little bit personal here and take us back in your own childhood. What is the most traumatic world event that you remember, and how did you process through it?
That's bringing up a really good point. And it's a point about what all of us went through during 9/11 and what the research showed us. And this is an important piece for parents with what may be coming next. What we learned is 6 months after people had sat on through TV watching the Twin Towers collapse, 6 months later, people who were anxious could not get that video out of their mind. Parents have to become protective through this. If we start having a lot of video showing funerals of victims, talking only about death and the numbers of people that are dying, and as those start to escalate, that's going to create stress. Parents must become protective of their kids. Parents need to get off the television and not allow their children to become immersed in TV, because that is going to extremely affect the kids and increase their stress level to maybe unmanageable ways. They need to say, we're going to turn this off. If you have questions, we'll be honest with you. But we don't need to keep watching the same frightening shots over and over. Even right now, the shots of empty grocery stores could fuel anxiety in their child that's just sort of silently watching and is now scared that they're all going to starve to death because it appears that there's no food. We've learned from 9/11 how to manage the anxiety. don't get immersed in it, and don't allow your kids to watch video that could then be sort of permanently embedded in their head.
The children are out of school right now, and they're going to miss quite a bit of it. We're only at the front end of this, not at the back end. Do parents need to be concerned about how much academically their children are missing?
I think this is going to be a growing concern. Right now, some of the children have been told they need to do 4 hours of computer work a day. It's going to be hard for parents to enforce that. There's rumors about how long children are going to be kept out of school. Parents are going to have to monitor that, keep their children reading, and probably go online and learn how to effectively do homeschooling, because there's not any evidence we're going to get back quickly.
And finally, Doctor, children process traumatic events in different ways. What can we as adults learn from them?
Well, I think we need to appreciate when they are using humor. I think we need to appreciate that their lives go on, and it's our responsibility to help them go on unencumbered by the daily stress. We need to find ways to even, make light of some of these new processes about what can we do in the house. Maybe we pretend we have, a camp in the house. And maybe we pretend that we're having a sleepover in the house and the whole family sleeps in the living room. We need to get more creative to find the bright spot and help kids see that this can actually be fun. Maybe we can even cook marshmallows over the stove. Parents are going to have to be creative and clever through this. And they're going to have to be brave, and they're going to have to reassure the children that things are going to be okay. This isn't going to last forever.
Dr. Doug Goldsmith, child and family psychologist, thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions.
You're welcome.